Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the People's Choice Podcast for episode 46. And I'm here with a very special guest. I'm here with Darrin Charles. Thank you for being part of the show. You're an amazing actor, you're a producer, writer, and you're an amazing athlete from all my research I've done on you. So please, ladies and gentlemen.
Alvin, man, what an introduction. I really appreciate that. And even hearing that is like, wow, really? I guess I got all those hyphenates there, but this is great. I'm happy to be talking with you.
Oh yeah, man. And the pleasure is all mine, because when I read up on your bio and stuff, and I was like, wow, like this guy's done a lot, man. I can only imagine like the stories and just the experiences, the things that you've gone through. I mean, like we can go on and on about it, but I love to start from the beginning. I always ask my my guests, what was your upbringing like, and for you growing up in Wisconsin?
Yeah, so I'm a Midwest born and bred kind of guy. I was born in St. Paul, Minnesota, until about fourth or fifth grade, and that's when I made the transition to Wisconsin, which was a bit of a culture shock. I'm half black and white, so my father's side of the family is black from St. Paul, Minnesota, and we grew up, right downtown, urban environment, and saw a lot of different ethnicities. And then, when we made that move a little bit later on, it was a bit of culture shock moving out into the more rural spaces. So, yeah.
What's your favorite part about there? Like, or maybe you're not best part. I always ask guests that too.
Like the Midwest or Wisconsin?
Yeah, Wisconsin.
So I spent my time 45 minutes south of Green Bay, which is called Oshkosh, Wisconsin. And coincidentally, if you watch enough late night TV, David Letterman, Jay Leno, and those guys, they'd always make fun of Oshkosh as kind of, like the boonies of maybe the United States or something. So it held a little bit of a connotation for a little bit for me. But, I really enjoyed it. I loved it. Probably perhaps because the city embraced me a bit more through athletics. But even beyond that, them being so good to my family as well. I mean, there's a lot of events that takes place in the area. It's the event city. So we have EAA, where airplanes fly in from all over the world there. There's country music festivals, and, Milwaukee and Madison, the capital, are real close by. So I loved it for all those reasons, really, and more.
Awesome, man. That's great to hear. I love when people tell just little black stories on growing up, especially the good stuff.
Yeah, no, exactly. And that's the thing. I think there needs to be some optimism there. And let's also say that it's Packer country, because I see your fan zone back there.
Yeah. I still, a lot of people that know me, I'm a big Steeler fan. I still lose sleep sometimes losing that Super Bowl to you guys. I rewatch sometimes. I'm like, man, if we wouldn't just fumbled right there, man. What was you thinking? Dang it, you should have cut left and right.
Oh man, that's a special type of heartbreak, isn't it?
It is. That one,
and all fans know that. So
But I was actually a little happy too, like just because I'm a football purist. I mean, I'm a diehard Steeler fan, but I was happy to see Aaron Rodgers win that ring, and Clay Matthews, all those guys, AJ Hall, Charles Woodson. So just because I'm a big football fan, but then it's like, man, that was my team. God. Yeah. Pulling at both ends is always there. In fact, speaking of that, I signed with the Chicago Bears after my college stint. And so being born in St. Paul, Minnesota, and spending most of my time in, the frozen tundra, and then getting picked up by the Chicago Bears. I mean, in our house, it was bumping heads, And I was going to get into that a little bit, because I can't imagine that had to be like a dream come true. But we're speaking on your athletic background. I mean, you were amazing in high school. I saw that you won 3 state championships in track and field, and also won a state championship in football as well.
So yeah, you did your research, Alvin.
Yeah, I tried. I was going to ask you, what was that experience like in high school, being a star athlete like that?
It was great. I had an outlet for all of the emotions and things that I was going through, and the things that I carried with me from childhood. And that became a big part of my story. I went out for track and field my freshman year as this very skinny, lean, kind of timid kid. And My very good friend at the time, my best friend's father, said, why don't you go out and give track and field a try? It won't hurt. Just see if you like it and go from there. Just do it for 2 weeks. That was actually what it sounded like. And so I went out and gave it a try. In my freshman year of high school, I high jumped 6'7", which was a little bit taller than me at the time. And then, placed in state and just kind of took off from there with track and field. I attempted to play some football my sophomore year. I had this amazing growth spurt, about 3 inches when I was 16 years old over the summer. And I outgrew all my clothes. So, I'm 6'6" now. I was 6'6" then. And they didn't have tall clothing then. So it was
not at all.
Yeah. So it was some awkward social stages going on. And I'll just come out and say it. My senior year photo, I had a unibrow as well. So, athletically, I prospered, but socially, I was still a bit in the awkward phase.
That's funny you mentioned that. That's hilarious. And that growth spurt, man, that is a amazing growth spurt to get that tall. And it's funny that when you're saying that you went to become, like a track star, but it was really just almost like a 2-week process. I'll just give it 2 weeks, and then you went on to dominate and do so well, man. That's amazing.
Yeah. And I think it also is a testimony to the power of trying new things, as well as people supporting you. It's people seeing things in you that perhaps you can't, because I really don't know what he saw in me in order for me to give that a try. But, I'm certainly grateful. And I went on to, get invited to Junior Olympics in track and field my senior year, and then, get the opportunity for scholarship. So it's, you just never know what something new can bring to you. So that's the good lesson in there.
Definitely. And speaking of scholarships, you went to the Wisconsin University. How did you know Wisconsin was the school for you?
Man, another wonderful question. I've been a guy who's been led by my heart and truth, and just intuitively feeling what is right. And, by the time I was my junior year in high school is when I actually became very good at football and kind of landed on that scene. So, and basketball, I thought would be my life leading up to all of this into high school. So, opportunities started to present themselves, and football felt right for me. And I remember getting invited for track and field and basketball and football, basically everywhere, more or less. And when I went on my first visit, it was actually at the University of Wisconsin, and it just really felt right. And maybe it was my Midwest upbringing. We had an iconic coach in Barry Alvarez, who just recently retired as our athletic director after a very storied career. And so yeah.
And that's amazing. And I'm glad you went with your gut feeling. And I've interviewed a few athletes here on my show, so it's always interesting to see what they're like why they chose that school, because some have a long list of colleges that's just throwing everything, promising them the world. Then you got some that probably only had one school offer them, but then they did so well at that school. So that's amazing though.
Yeah. That actually reminds me of something else. I remember there were some other schools around the country, and I won't say who they were, but they were, those big schools at the time. And, talent hadn't really dispersed at that point. You had in the Midwest, it was Michigan State had iconic teams, and you had Tennessee when Peyton Manning was around and some of these guys. So I actually looked at the graduation rate for their athletic program, specifically their football program. And this 1% rate made me shift my decision away from one school and bring it a bit closer to home, which was the Midwest. I had a single mother raising myself and 2 other boys. So it was just that little bit of awareness shifted everything. So.
And I'm glad you actually touched on that, because sometimes as athletes, and I used to be a former athlete, not to your level or nothing, but
hey, it's sometimes, okay though. We're the same breed.
True that. I mean, yeah, it never leaves you. It's still in there.
That's right.
I'm just competitive in a different field now. But
and that's what it takes to transition afterwards. But we'll get into that. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna say. Now I forgot I was gonna say. Oh man, but I know we were talking about like athletics and graduation rate, that's amazing. Because sometimes as an athlete, we're not even thinking like. Sometimes we just think like, okay, yeah, we're gonna go to high school, dominate, go to college, dominate, then go into the pros, dominate. Like we're not even thinking. And the fact that you was like, well, let me check the graduation rate, like that's amazing. And I think more athletes should definitely do that instead of think about, oh, it's gonna be all sunshines and rainbows when you get there.
Yeah, and that's the kind of duality of that double-edged sword, because in order to make it to that level, you got to want it so bad that your vision is so narrowly focused that maybe you're just thinking about one rep at a time, one opportunity at a time, and how can you make one little adjustment to get better. And with that narrowed focus, sometimes it's hard to see the bigger picture. And I would say I benefited from just having maybe the door cracked open ever so slightly for me just to consider some other things. And that really benefited me. And, that's also something I want to impart to other people, because, and especially athletes that are in transition, it's, the window isn't very wide for you to be successful. I think, what is it? 3% of student athletes or whatever will make it to the pros, or maybe even football players. And then you think about who's going to make it past the average 3 to 4 year window for the NFL alone. And then to make it to the Hall of Fame is an even smaller percentage of the original percentage. So
I think it's like 1%. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's not to deter you, because dreams are important. I think you really have to go after that. And I think it also makes you into a certain type of individual and elevates your life. But just to have the tools just to keep that door cracked is everything,
Mm-hmm. And that had to be just amazing to think, like when you made that transition from college going to the pros to get signed by the Chicago Bears. What was that whole experience like? Like I can imagine just from like your hometown, family, like everyone. So what was that like?
I remember getting closer to it. You end your junior year of college. I ended my junior year of college, and I'm walking into my senior year. And, I knew I wasn't a first day guy of the draft. And my goal was to kind of get somewhere in the mid-second round. And I knew, we had a talented team, so I knew where some of the guys were at and maybe where I fell within that. But as you get closer to it, you want it more and more. And with that, also, I was trying to disconnect from the thing that I wanted so much as well, because I was a bit unsure of what would happen if I didn't make it. I didn't know what would happen to, my heart, my mind, my everything. Would this destroy my entire world? So I tried to be as healthy as I could through that process. And, I was with my family, and we were in the living room, some extended family, and we knew day one was going to pass. Day two came, and getting towards the end, and, hopeful. I didn't hear my name called, but I felt confident that this was meant for me. And so I guess you would say the third day, that following morning, my agent called right away and said, the Chicago Bears want to sign you to a free agency contract. And, for me, it was like, let's do it. And it was just a thrill ride. It was like relief. It was like, thank God. It was, my family had sacrificed so much. Members of my community had given so much to not only my family, but myself. And, I didn't want to let a lot of people down. And thankfully I was able to get there and touch it, So
I can't even imagine that experience. That had to be just like a roller coaster. And I'm real proud of you for even making it to that level. Because that is a very, very hard thing to do. What advice would you give to young athletes to make it to like the pro level, or even maybe the college level? Because some athletes struggle even to get to that level.
I would say that it's important to have a dream, the dream. You want to hold that vision at all times, because obstacles are going to come, but it's about how you move through those obstacles while remaining committed to the vision. So that's the bigger picture thing. The other piece to that would be to commit to improvement, have a willingness and a will to move forward. And you'll see a lot of athletes develop that. And sometimes that's why we call them warriors, and why they go to battle. And it's because there's a desire, which is the willingness. And that's a gentle movement forward. But the will means against all odds, you'll push through. And then I guess another great tip would be, focus on what you're able to do in the moment. When you're in the gym, you get one rep to be better. When you're watching game film, it's find that one piece of critique that you can adjust and get better. So it really comes down to moments that lead up over time. So you just got to be focused.
Some great advice right there. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that.
Mm-hmm.
I hope it changes someone, because I used to coach football a little bit too. So I have some, those guys, they watch my show. So I think a lot of them definitely take that to consideration.
Great. Yeah.
Do you have any?
Are you still involved?
I actually, once COVID hit, we had to take a break from coaching, but they're actually bringing the program back. It's been like a year and a half now since, so I'm actually trying to get in. Hopefully I can, but with my schedule, it's kind of looking like I may not be, but I'm going to support them as much as I can.
Great.
Volunteer anywhere I can as well, like around my area. I love coaching football. I just love football in general. But just the game itself, man, it's brought so much joy and happiness and purpose in my life and many others, and teaching the young guys that I was teaching, learning from my mistakes. So
and when you give, it lifts you up too, right? And you see the value that you have in the world, and those young eyes see that in you, and that's a great reciprocating feeling. So that's really great.
It is one of the things, like, I never will forget this feeling. It was my first year coaching. I was coaching recreation. It was the 11 and 12-year-old. And I remember day one of just all the nerves and just seeing the players and the way they just didn't know what they were doing, or, you could see it, like some potential there, but just wasn't there yet. And the feeling I had at the end of the season, we won our last game. We did great. The transformation of how the players, like, they're just firing all cylinders. Like, it's just an amazing feeling. Wow, these kids are really hitting their stride. They're really doing it. Like, this is amazing. Like, I've seen it, but just all like the weeks of just preparation and good practice, bad practice, and then seeing how they blossomed into that player. I mean, it's a crazy feeling. I can't explain it.
Yeah. Utterly rewarding is what it sounds like. And what I like about what you said is that, you put this effort and work into something, whether you're the athlete or the coach, but you do it in community and you do it as an individual. And as you work at it and you get that guidance and you get supported, you can see tangible change over time. Because oftentimes we can't see how we change as individuals. Usually it takes other people outside of us. And, usually we say that in dating relationships or in friendship scenarios. So that's why it's important to be surrounded by the right people. But athletics really lets you see how quickly you can change as a person. And I find that to be incredible as well.
True that. So after that, you went on to transition from the Bears to an acting career. How did you know, like, it was time to transition? Because from what I was doing my research on you, you still had many offers from either Arena League and other leagues that want to get you to play.
I had somewhere along the line made a decision in my athletic career that it would be all or nothing. And that commitment had to remain for me to get to that level, which I touched on a little bit earlier, that single-minded focus. As I started getting closer to the dream and actually touching the dream, I realized that there was perhaps more to my life, or life in general, that I hadn't explored. I felt so successful in that I had all these medals from track and all these accolades from, football, being, the Wisconsin State Player of the Year my senior year, and a first team All-State offensive player as a wide receiver, and first team All-State defensive player as a free safety. So I was just kind of collecting these achievements, but they were outside of me a bit. And I had this underlying feeling of, well, who am I? And is this success? And is this maybe all there is for me? These questions got a little bit more clear for me as time progressed. But when I got to the NFL, I realized that there was more, and I was willing to roll the dice to be truthful to my own personal truth and see what was out there. And then that sent me on a journey of understanding and trying to unwind some of the aspects of who I was to bring this new inner life forward. So I know that that's a lot, and it maybe sounds a bit poetic, but I'm just really trying to paint a picture here.
No, I mean, because it's just mind blowing. Like I can't even imagine like the nerves because like being an athlete, like that's kind of like sometimes all we see is like the pros, and then like sometimes we don't even think about life after football until maybe an injury or until there's no more opportunities. But yet you were already thinking about like, man, I have all these accomplishments and I want to try this like that. That's amazing. I applaud you 100% for that.
I think that, thank you. And I think that comes from trying to self-direct my life to the best of my ability, knowing that I was insufficient in a lot of areas and unprepared as I was moving into newer and newer stages and wanting to be successful. So it left me kind of peeking into the future a bit more, perhaps than other people. There might be some people that would say, oh, well, therein lies your problem. You didn't stay as focused as you said you needed to be. Right. But I think that we have to have an awareness for what's to come. We have to take in the new information that's being delivered to us so we can make the right decision in the right moment to course correct where we want to head, because life just isn't a linear thing. And so then after, making that decision and commitment that I would put sports behind me, then I had to have the tough conversation with mom.
Yeah. I was going to ask, like, was your family very supportive of your decision?
No, quite honestly, I think people's minds were blown. In one way, I knew I had purposefully walked away from sports, and but the media says cut from the team, or another article say Darrin Charles retired. So from that point, it became about managing expectations. That phone call to my mother was one of the most difficult conversations I have ever had in my life. I had the weight of what I felt was my mother and my family's hopes and dreams on me. I had, the community at large, coaches from high school all the way up in all these sports, including my university coaches. It was just, there was a lot of reasons to not make a decision that was truthful to me. But I felt that I had no other way through but to have some difficult conversations there. And it was maybe at least 2 months before my mother and I really spoke.
Wow.
After that. And that conversation wasn't very long in the first place. But I will tell you, since then, our relationship has grown stronger than it has ever been. And
that's awesome.
And all those accolades and all those achievements and all the reasons why I did those things in the first place, to elevate myself and my family and to change circumstances, was really for my mother and my family. So to have all of that back in a far greater and more positive space than it probably would have been had I gone a different direction.
Definitely. That's great to hear. I'm glad that your guys' relationship is better than ever, because that was actually one thing I was thinking. It's like, man, I can't imagine having that conversation with my parents, and I'm glad you touched on that. Thank you, Darrin. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I think people can grab some wisdom from that. And, this is what I talk to student athletes about and impart this wisdom. And I think that, it's difficult transitioning anyway from athletics out to, acting or normal life in general. And, life is a fight. It's a fist fight anyway. So, but I think there's space there for more athletes to turn around and come in and take charge of the community and help guide some people, because I personally believe that, athletes and our military vets, our warriors, are most equipped to be successful leaders in life if we can support them through that transition and help them cultivate that inner life, whether they're in college to catch up to, the other students who'd focused on academics forever. If we can get them kind of caught up and cultivating their inner life and using all those intangible skills that they develop through sports, will, strength, flexibility, determination, those things, I think it's just a launching pad. So I'm in that space trying to make a difference.
Difference you are. You're definitely making a difference. And just from the people that's going to see this, I know it's going to make a difference. Who are some of your idols that you looked up to in the film industry, or actors, or actresses?
Yeah. There's quite a few in that space, but, I definitely want to highlight Denzel Washington, who many people can identify with. I really fell in love with him in the movie Fallen in 1998. So if anybody's a movie buff, definitely check that out. And he got game. Jesus
That's
Shuttlesworth.
classic. Yes.
Yeah,
I actually watched it not too long ago.
Did you? Yeah, so did I.
Love that movie.
Yeah, see Spike Lee, and he's a director that I'd love to work with too, and maybe some comedy kind of element, because I think that would be an amazing thing. And I love those stories that are centered around the man and a son, or redemptive qualities or transitions and changes in life. So He Got Game is a story that's really near and dear to me, and it makes me emotional, and I'm really connected to it because it's a question that I've thought about often throughout my life. Sidney Poitier, The Measure of a Man, his book. Mm-hmm. I've always been concerned with how are we measuring men, particularly in the Black community as well, but society as a whole. And, those movies really show the impact of society, culture, and African-American men. So yeah, I could go.
That's a great movie too. I love that movie. Me and my dad used to watch it all the time because he's a big Julius Erving fan. He said, Denzel, just like Julius Erving, he hit that afro.
Didn't he though?
He did though.
He really did. I know. Don't get me started, man. I might drop a tear over here.
Oh man.
Because those closing credits. Do you remember that song?
I just seen the movie literally not too long ago, but I don't remember the song right now off my head.
I'm not even going to try to sing it because I don't have the voice, but check it out.
I will. I'll check it out. Just a few more questions. I know we're running a little bit of time, and I want to be respectful of your time. So one thing I love to ask, well, there's two things I love to ask all my guests, because I just love the different answers. One of them is the favorite quotes. So what is one of your favorite quotes that you lean on during the good times or the bad times?
I don't have a quote that I lean on all the time. I'm constantly taking in a lot of information and I'm picking up new quotes. I'm reading a book right now by Simon Sinek called Start With Why. Anybody who wants to make real change in the world, I highly recommend it. Anybody who wants to open a business, a heart-centered business that'll last forever, go to that book. In there, he tells a story about a fellow named Ben Coleman who's suffering from cerebral palsy and ran cross country. And so, as soon as the gun went off, everybody would run the race. And, about 25 minutes later, everybody would cross the finish line. But this Ben Coleman, who was fighting through cerebral palsy, would stumble and fall and, kind of drag his body through because it really affects motor skills and reflexes and things like that. But he'd pick himself up with all of his energy and continue running. And so once all the other athletes finish the race, they would come back and they would pick him up and run with him, and other people would run with him. And I was blown away by this story. And when you start with why, you realize, that it's a heart-centered thing. So this man, Ben Coleman, was doing it for himself, not for the achievements, not for the outside world, not for the accolades. It was for himself. And Simon is quoted as saying in there, and this is rough, but you'll get the gist. It's when you compete against everyone else, no one's there to support you. But when you compete against yourself, everybody will come to help you. And
that's a good one.
Yeah, that blew me away last night. It might have been 11:30 last night, and I put my hands on my head, and I was just like, whew. So, yeah, people sit with that. Think about that.
That's a good one right there. I like that one a lot. So what are some current projects that you're currently working on? Can you imagine how busy you must be?
Yeah, I'm juggling a lot. Yes, I'm really passionate. I want to bring my gifts into the world, and I want to be in service of people and storytelling and leadership and lifting my communities up, and all things that I've kind of been doing, throughout the course of my life. Right now, I am focused on bringing my vision together in terms of speaking with student athletes, getting in front of them, high school, colleges, transitioning athletes as well, just impart that wisdom on what they can expect from high school to college. Mm-hmm. I myself, I had, parents, I had my mother there with me, but sometimes the people closest to you aren't equipped to give you the best tools possible. So it's helping guide them in that way. In addition, it's having these great conversations like we're having, where I get a chance to talk about why I'm passionate about it, why it's meaningful to me, and how my life has brought me to this point. And so that's another big thing. In the future, I have this massive vision of bringing together, the military and athletes and creating, online summits and festivals and resources and bringing in coaches and community and incubating these mindsets of like-minded individuals so we can, welcome our warriors back into society and culture and to themselves so that they can go ahead and continue to prosper, because for a long time, I just think they've been overlooked. So that's part of my mission. That's one big piece. And, I love storytelling. I love expression. I have, it's not something that's rewarded in your athletic career. And I found that as I went on this journey of adventure and discovery, that acting and storytelling is a way to reach people and move people. And so that's another really exciting thing. And then I guess just to kind of wrap this up a little bit, because I guess I could keep going,
the floor is all yours.
Yeah. Okay.
The floor is all yours.
I also have a book club that I've been doing for the past couple of years. So it's a personal and professional development book club. So it's devoted to self-help and self-development. And they're great books. They're not overly spiritual, but they're intended to be books that will give you the tips and tools to be successful no matter what field you're in. So they'll deal with everything from a little bit of finance to relationships and kind of everything in between. I'll give some more information on that, I guess, here at the end. But and then that's also a tool to point to other men that I come across, as well as these athletes and the warriors. It's just so important to have people who can guide and point you in the right direction, I've found. And as an athlete, when you're looking towards other men or other leaders to give you the tips and tools that you need to survive and thrive, sometimes they're only in specific little areas. So as you grow from your athletic career, it's important to find coaches in other ways. And, that's inspirational videos on YouTube, it's books and other resources. So that book club is something that I point to for anybody as well. So, join me. Let's have conversations. Let's grow together.
Definitely amen to that. That's some good stuff right there. Because too often, like being in the athletic world, and sometimes we have some people that we know are just outstanding athletes, but just couldn't catch any breaks. And sometimes they even feel like lost. So I definitely recommend people to check that out, because I know a lot of people that are like that. They didn't know what to do, what advice to get even beyond football. So that's great.
Yeah, everybody's going to suffer at some point from transitions or lack of information that they don't know. Mm-hmm. When you grow, you realize your parents aren't superhuman and they can't teach you everything. So when you come from a place of being led for years by a coach or told what to do in the military, et cetera, it's time to change that dynamic and be active in your participation in your own development and to be supported as well. So, yeah.
And where can all my peeps, that's what I call my audience, my peeps and new audience find you on social media?
What's up, peeps? Thanks for listening. If you're still here with us, I can be found on my Instagram. It's Darrin.Charles. That's DARRIN.Charles. If you go to the profile link, you'll be able to get access to my website, my YouTube channel, the book club, my LinkedIn, and anything else. If you'd like to connect and speak with me, it's all available there.
Thank you so much for being a part of the People's Choice podcast world, the community. Anyone that you want to shout out before we wrap this up, that just for always being there for you, give thanks?
Yes. I really want to give a shout out to my mother. I did so much for her, as I said earlier, to get to this point of where I'm at. And, we made it through some challenging times and we're prospering like crazy. And even in that conflict and, misunderstanding of expectations, we've been able to come together and get on the same path. And you know what? I'm still doing it for her. I've just included a lot more people, including myself.
Well, thank you again so much, Darrin. I really appreciate the stories, the inspiration, the advice. I can't wait for this to come out. Any last words that you want to give or anything? off your
Yeah,
chest.
I just want to I want to say thank you, man. This was a really great conversation. Thank you for doing the research. Thank you for your commitments to giving back to athletes and your audience base. So I appreciate you.
Thank you. I appreciate that too. Oh, and one more thing. I also want to say congratulations to, I seen when I was doing research on you, you did a keynote speech too. That's really impressive.
Yeah. That's it. It's on the transitions and all of these things that I talked about and more. So I'm not locked into one ideology or themes. I'm willing to be flexible because there's just so much information there, and I'm here to be of service. Yeah.
Definitely. Thank you again, Darrin Charles, everybody.
Appreciate you, Alvin.
Thank you.